And welcome into the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Palicki and Jacob Liberta. You can find all our videos on our YouTube channel here, so be sure to like and subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram as well. Today we will be discussing the expansion draft, which just concluded with the Seattle Kraken taking a player from each team in the NHL. This happened a few years ago when the Vegas Golden Knights came into the league as well. So the Minnesota Wild end up losing Carson Soucy. He's a third-line defenseman for them, probably their sixth defenseman, honestly, if they're sixth defenseman. So not a huge loss, considering that they could have lost their young goalie prospect, Capo Kakinen, who honestly played very well for a large stretch of the season, this past regular season. And obviously Cam Talbot was the better goalie, and he's going to be their goalie going forward for at least the next couple of years. But it's nice to not lose that young goaltender because now he's at least your backup. You don't have to go shopping for a backup, so...
Exactly. You have that in your back pocket in case Talbot struggles. So
Correct.
I think that's going to be huge for this team, especially trying to really turn themselves into a real contender coming up here starting this year.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the only downside of this is this leaves the Wild now with three legitimate NHL defensemen. You got Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, and Matt Dumba as well, who's still under contract. They got Kalen Addison, who's a prospect who played a few NHL games this past season. He's a right shot defenseman. He's got some offensive game to him as well. So he's an intriguing player. There's also rumors that they're trying to bring back Ian Cole, who was a solid veteran add for this team this past season. So it'd be good to bring him back. And then obviously the Wild are still going to have to sign another veteran defenseman or two. So I guess, how do you see this? Do you see this really affecting us going forward here? Or do you think losing Soucy? I mean, personally, I think this is way better than what Vegas did to us a couple of years ago.
Yes. Honestly, I 100% agree with you there. I think Soucy might hurt just this year in the immediate future. Basically, looking at our cap concerns we have, because honestly, we're trying to re-sign Kaprizov and Fiala to long-term deals with limited cap space as it is. So, like, filling out our 3 D lines might be a little shaky, but at the same time, I think going forward for the long term, I don't think this is going to hurt us as much as it possibly could. Because, like you said, you brought up Kakinen. Like, we lost him, and then he turned into a great goalie. That could really hurt us years from now. We've been talking about this years from now. Where you also brought up the Vegas thing, how they took obviously the call up, but that was just because we traded them Tuck too.
Right.
And that Tuck thing came back to sting us because he played pretty well in this playoff series we just got out of. So I think that one leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, and he could have been honestly a really good wing for us, which obviously it would be nice to have another goal scorer on this team. You know, it is what it is. We learned from our mistakes, and, you know, that was Chuck Fletcher. So thankfully he's gone, and now we got Billy Guerin, and it turned out for the best for us this time around. So that's huge for us.
Yeah, I'm not too upset about it. I think he's a decent player, and I think he could potentially blossom into a good player for the Kraken.
Oh, yeah.
Just based on looking at their list, it appears that they don't really have any, like, legitimate veterans on their team. They have the opportunity to get Landeskog and Carey Price, Vladimir Tarasenko from the Blues. They passed on all those guys, so it kind of appears that they want to start off with a younger team and guys that are making less money, which is probably smart, honestly. I mean, it's a little different approach than what Vegas had, but they're trying to build for long-term success, I guess, and it's probably hard to replicate what Vegas did as well. I think Vegas just kind of nailed it.
Setting the bar high.
Yeah, and they've been in the playoffs and competing every single year they've been in the league. So do you think Seattle, I mean, probably won't have the same early on success as Vegas, but do you like the potential that this team could have going forward?
I think so. Like you said, they're putting together a pretty young roster, so they're probably not going to compete right now. But obviously, you can't count them out because, like you said, Vegas had tremendous success early on, albeit they took a different approach to building their roster. But even if you go back, like, obviously, that was a different era of hockey, so it's kind of a different thing, but along the same line, just because, like, for instance, when the Wild, they were added to the NHL, and then a few years later, they're already in the Western Conference Finals. So, I mean, it can happen. So, I mean, you never know how this is going to shake out for sure right now, but right after the expansion draft. But, I mean, I think they got some good pieces to work around, and time will tell, I guess. But I think it's great that we're putting hockey in a city like Seattle where it's a pretty good sports market. So, I think this should turn out for the best. And I really just love the energy around it, like the name, the Kraken. I think that's great.
Great name, great jerseys with a great color scheme.
Exactly, and I think that's really cool. And I think it's going to shake up the Western Conference a little bit. But maybe you won't see the effects of that right away. But, like, maybe a few years from now, it could be definitely different. But I'm glad they don't look quite as formidable as Vegas does now.
Right.
But I mean, even did a couple years ago, like in their first year in the league, going to the Stanley Cup final. But
Mhm.
I mean, granted, I guess I didn't see Vegas having that great a success right away either, but it just happened. So we'll see. But right now, I like the idea of what they're doing, but it's just not really an immediate success kind of story.
Right.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be super successful right away either, but it's kind of an interesting path they're taking, selecting a lot of these younger players that have some upside potentially with smaller contracts, and maybe they're kind of working on maybe where they could have some trade flexibility as well and some cap flexibility. So it's just a different way of doing it, but one impact this will have for sure is that it's going to kick Arizona out of that Pacific division and move Arizona now into the Central. With the Wild, and the Wild have played Arizona very well over the last several years. So that'll be kind of an interesting wrinkle as well to throw into this, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Kraken do here. I mean, it's very possible that they're one of the worst teams right off the bat, but I mean, like you said, it's just kind of cool to give Seattle a hockey team, and then with the jerseys and the colors and everything, it's just kind of fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the NHL, I like that they're expanding to 32 teams like the NFL has, and I think that's a good clean number, nice even number to have.
Sure.
And I think that'll soon happen with the NBA as well here in the coming years. So that's another thing I'm going to be pretty excited for when going to basketball and talk about expansion drafts. That'd be pretty interesting how that would work, but topic for another time.
Absolutely. So that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Be sure to like our videos and stay tuned for more content by subscribing and hitting the notification button as well. And feel free to give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter and comment below about what you think about the Seattle Kraken and their prospects for this upcoming season.